Best Music Compilation.
Time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
And welcome into Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network on this Wednesday, the 30th day of May, 2018, as we bring you a special edition of the show that we talk about here today. And, of course, we have the deadline day for the NBA draft. Things such as today are very, very difficult because we have a very big dichotomy with the way things go. We have Clemson and South Carolina who are feeling very differently today. The Clemson Tigers feeling pretty happy. They get their two leading scorers back, Shelton Mitchell and Marquise Reed. South Carolina fans, basically a polar opposite. Brian Bowen announcing about an hour ago that he is going to stay in the NBA draft and declare for the NBA draft and be a professional after the NCAA told him that he will have to sit out at minimum the entirety of next basketball season in order to fulfill punishment from the NCAA for his father taking allegedly impermissible benefits from two Adidas agents and also an agent separate from them. There was also some chatter earlier today that we were actually able to get to independently via a source that told us similar information. We did not know necessarily that the 1 year ban would be a minimum. There could have been more suspension going out. The NCAA just didn't necessarily, they basically declined to say stuff on the record as far as that goes. But from what South Carolina has now told us and what the source also told us before during the day, basically Brian Bowen was not going to play for the Gamecocks this year in Corn. The NCAA backed him into a corner where he had no other choice to go to the NBA.
Well, first of all, there's a lot of shame to go around in this whole story. Let's begin with the dad. And Adidas and the shoe company and the go-between, whether coach or agent, shame on all of them for creating this whole mess. And you've got an innocent kid here by all accounts, and he pays the big price because he wanted to go to college, according to Frank Martin. Yeah, was a good student at South Carolina and was getting everything done from that standpoint. So shame on them, and then shame on the NCAA for dragging this thing out to the absolute last day. You know, I guess you could have resolved this thing maybe last week, 2 weeks before. Why did it have to drag out here to the very last day when you had a deadline that, at least from the kids' standpoint, needed to be met? And then shame on them for their ruling, because this seems like a very heavy price to pay when you talk about an organization that supposedly looks out for the, quote, student athlete, and rules against the student athlete who, as far as we can tell, had nothing to do with the transaction that took place. This is a very strong penalty, considering he'd already missed one season of college basketball. Now you are going to impose a second year of penalties on him. Seems like that's stronger than anything else they've imposed in this case or similar cases thus far. So a complete boondoggle. In another case where, and I know South Carolina's probably gotten some favorable rulings over the years from the NCAA and the SEC when it comes to these sort of things, but I can't remember one of any consequence.
I do want to at least throw out the phone number, 800-956-7266. Are you as enraged as we are about this? Do you think the NCAA ruled correctly? If you believe so, tell us why. You can also comment at SportsTalkSC on Twitter and also on Periscope.
To me, it has nothing to do whether it's correct or not. Here's the key. I think the timing was done specifically on the NCAA's timetable. What they wanted to do, say, for instance, a few months ago, Brian Bowen registers at South Carolina. He takes his classes, and then several months ago, the NCAA says, you're not going to be eligible. He would have gone to court and challenged their doctrine about the sins of the father or relative falls on me. Why? The FBI just showed you that I knew nothing about it, but I'm going to be punished for something my dad did. He takes that to court. Now they get another challenge. They wait to the last minute. So he either is backed in a corner, or if he has the wherewithal, would have stayed in school and challenged them again. But by that time, his skills as a basketball player are eroding, and he's not going to do that. So I think their timing was sinister.
Oh, it was.
I really was.
Well,
Really.
again, this is kind of, again, peeling back the onion. We had a lot of the similar information that the state newspaper reported and that Jeff Goodman reported. We didn't feel comfortable going forward with that information based on solely that involving a particular decision for Bowen. But from the information that we got through our independent sources throughout the day, that the NCAA contacted South Carolina last night and basically told them this information, which was, again, later made public by them, that he would not be able to play this upcoming year. And to my understanding, again, this is very much the Cam Newton same scenario from what happened with him involving the impermissible benefits and the first real adjudication and jurisdiction of this rule. I believe Cam Newton was out for a grand total of a day or two, Corn. And this guy not only does not get credit for quote-unquote time served, he has to sit out basically what amounts to the transfer semester and then a whole nother semester and then maybe more on top of that. Basically, from the standpoint of the NCAA, they look incredibly cruel, and in my opinion, this further damns them in the eyes of a public that really didn't trust them to begin with.
Yeah. It's again, it's just another ruling against South Carolina from one of the governing bodies that it must abide by, whether it's the NCAA or the SEC. If I were USC, I would just withdraw from both of them and form my own organization, because you can't catch a break.
I almost wonder what would have happened if they tried to play them anyway.
Here's another thing, just to add on, why don't we, throw a flag for 15 yards for piling on. So today, South Carolina gets this news about Bowen, all right? That really hurts your basketball team. Same time, your rival gets the news that its two senior guards are coming back because they've withdrawn from the draft, so they'll be back. That's great news for Clemson, and that bolsters their team, which should be clearly a top 25 team.
Going in.
And then, and on top of that, today, the state newspaper, Lou Bezjak, I say Bezjak, you say Bezjak.
Either way.
Reported that, and he talked to him, that Bryce Thompson has enrolled at Tennessee, and he says he'll be eligible to play football this year. Now, how is that possible? I guess it is. And South Carolina closed the door on him and closed the book on him, I guess, when they took Nick Harvey as a transfer. But, Bryce Thompson is, in my eyes, and I can say this from having seen him play a little bit, is a terrific football player and an exceptional offensive player. And here's one South Carolina had, and how is it that he can get into Tennessee and become eligible at Tennessee to play this year and couldn't or wouldn't at South Carolina?
I don't believe that the academic standards at Tennessee are all that better than South Carolina, if they are at all.
Well, now the case could be that, and I don't know the details.
Could be paying his own way.
Well, based on what the story said, sounds to me like he's on scholarship, but now it could be the case where he just recently got completely, totally academically qualified, and South Carolina decided not to wait on that possibility and went ahead and filled up their class when they took Nick Harvey, and thus he's able to go to Tennessee. But I'm just saying that's just another, from a personnel standpoint of a quality player who can help your program, that's just another, that is a bad blow for South Carolina.
Well, the question is to be asked, would he be the type of player he can be here? Maybe it's off the field issues of him remaining in his hometown. You remember years ago, and I won't tell you how I know a lot of this, but everybody said after he really struggled that Ryan Bethea would have been better off if he'd have gone somewhere else. Staying in Columbia hurt him for whatever reason. So I'm not saying this is the case, but it might be.
They've had plenty of derelicts come through there that did not live in Columbia. Okay. I hear what you're saying.
Yes.
Maybe getting away from some of the background baggage might be helpful to him. If I'm USC, though, with that kind of football talent, I'm willing to take a chance.
800-956-7266. Your thoughts on Brian Bowen leaving USC to go to the NBA draft. We'll get to Tiger, Brian, RJ, and you next on our calls in Sports Talk.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Sports Talk brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. You can receive double CU awards points on lodging, travel, and dining purchases from May 15th to July 31st when you use your Founders Visa Signature or Platinum Visa credit card. Visit foundersfcu.com/visa for full details. Again, we have a whole bunch to get to you here with the calls, 800-956-7266. Thoughts on that? Thoughts on Clemson getting Marquise Reed as well as Shelton Mitchell back? We now know the first real kickoff time for a South Carolina home contest. The game against Georgia, week 2, the SEC opening game against the Bulldogs, has been selected by CBS to be their signature broadcast, the first SEC versus SEC broadcast. They'll have their first broadcast the week before with Tennessee and West Virginia, and then week 2, Carolina and Georgia, the 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time exclusive TV window on the Tiffany Network, and again at Williams-Brice Stadium. So certainly a lot of hype around that contest, as we've talked about over the course of the year. 800-956-7266. Tiger Bryan leads us off from Lexington. Tiger Bryan, I guarantee you're a very happy man today.
Yeah, I'm real happy, but hey, I got 3 comments. I retired in June, 31 years with Lance County School District, I worked at. I'm going to tell y'all guys, hey, take my advice. Get your honeydew list before you retire. Because they say, your wife will work you to death. All right, number 2, hey, what about the Belt kid leaving Clemson? Do you think he's seen the writing on the wall? He wasn't going to get to play for a year or two, a couple of years, you know what I mean? Number 3, I can't believe, that kid from Carolina, your daddy's taking, that money from them, Nike or whoever.
Adidas.
Hey, the kid was going to make money anyway. He's a good basketball player. You know what I mean? That's sad, but I miss y'all guys. And, hey, y'all do a great job, and I'm gonna sit back and listen to the rest of it. I'm gonna get in the pool and listen to the rest of y'all.
In the pool? What kind of pool you got? Above ground or in ground?
In ground, baby.
Oh, got a diving board too?
Also some sliding board by everything.
Are you wearing?
It's a little chilly for the pool, isn't it?
Nah, it's 76 degrees.
Are you wearing your Speedos? You wearing your Speedos with the tiger paw on the side?
Cornbread, I don't roll like that.
All right, I'm just wondering.
hey, I might have that elephant trunk be hanging out if I wore a Speedo.
Well, you keep saying.
All right, now
you keep saying you miss us, Tiger Bryan. We don't go away now.
All right,
Tiger Bryan may have been talking about Alabama.
I think he might have. He's a Crimson Tider. That's good. That's good.
Tiger Bryan from Lexington.
The
Belk thing. You want to address?
Yeah, well, 2 things. Yeah, Belk thing. Yeah, he wasn't going to play much this year. He was going to redshirt, I would imagine, despite, Dabo Sweeney had some positive things to say about him in the spring. But with all that talent ahead, they would have been smart to redshirt him, and I'm sure that was going to be the case. I think it goes deeper than that with him. I just think there wasn't the comfort level there, the situation with the family that they have stated about, the comfort level at Clemson, things of that nature that we've come to learn about. I think that's just all conspired to lead him to the point where he was ready. He was going home every weekend to see his girlfriend. Every weekend. He was not staying around, meshing with the teammates, meshing with the players all that well.
Just didn't fit in.
He just felt the need to leave. Yeah.
Just wasn't comfortable there at the end of the day.
And then the other thing, going back to Bowen, it's just, if the kid is as innocent as we are led to believe, why does the NCAA punish the player like this? Why do they punish the player? I know the NCAA is somewhat powerless to punish the parent. They can punish the coach at Louisville, and that was involved. I guess they can't do much against the shoe company under their current legislation arrangement. But, to punish the kid, and especially for 2 years, as this would turn out to be, is just way beyond the pale.
Corn, you're wrong. They could punish whoever the heck they damn well please. They just decided to do the wrong thing here.
Well, I don't know how they can punish the parent, because they don't have that kind of power, do they? They can't go to a parent and say, you're suspended from being a parent. They can't.
Show me the bylaw where it says that this is the particular punishment for this particular crime, though. That's the thing.
I don't know. I mean, they do kind of make things up as they go along.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
It seems, but
I think they wanted to set a precedent here as far as getting a neighborhood example.
Oh yeah, that's an example of him.
They use an example. But here's the problem with the NCAA when they do this. Now, when you come to other entities and ask them, we like to have a rule of keep the college basketball players in school for about 2 to 3 years. Can you help us out with that? Why should we help you? You had a good guy who was a good student, wanted to stay in school, and you tossed him out.
Yeah, and upon all reports, his academics are fantastic.
That's it. Yeah, he was a good student.
800-956-7266. RJ is calling from Columbia. You're on Sports Talk, RJ. What's happening?
Hey, good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon, Corn. First of all, Belk would have definitely played this year. I mean, with all those guys leaving, they need to get him ready for next year.
But really, I mean, you're going to waste a year of eligibility just in mop-up role with him?
Albert Hogan 67 snaps his freshman year, 67.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays a lot of guys. When you come in there, you better be ready to play. So,
he does play a lot of guys.
Mm-hmm. And you have to do it now. You have to do it now with all these quick offenses with the snaps.
Okay, you might be right. Go ahead.
I agree, Pro, especially with everybody leaving. But I'm calling about the Bowen situation.
Go ahead.
I find it funny that, everybody talks about Cam. Cam should have been punished. Cam should have been punished. They never proved anything with Cam, although we know probably what happened. Here you have the FBI and proof that his family took the money. This is not the NCAA fault. They were heavily embarrassed when this FBI indictment came down. They were blindsided. This had never happened to them. And the Pro is right. They're making an example. And Corn, he's not being punished for 2 years. He had to sit out last year because he was transferred. But I just think it's, if this guy had a scholarship to UNC Charlotte and Drexel and Coastal, we wouldn't be having this. We wouldn't even be talking about the guy. The guy, he's a top 20 player. And let's face it, Coach Martin took a huge chance by bringing this guy in. He's got a coach on his staff that was somewhat, or former coach that was named in this thing to start with. And now I heard the other day he's even let Bowen showing other recruits around the school. I mean, that is a huge, it's a huge risk you're taking if you're Coach Martin. I just can't get over it.
Oh, it's no problem with that. Here's the key, though. You said the FBI proved this, but the FBI also said the kid was innocent.
Right. They cleared him. And also he transferred because of what happened at Louisville. He didn't transfer willingly. He transferred
because they wouldn't let him play.
Because they wouldn't let him play as this thing was unfolding. He was declared ineligible at Louisville and declared ineligible anywhere at that particular time. So it was like 2 years of punishment when you add in what they were going to do for this coming year. As far as Lamont Evans, yes, he is involved in this thing, but his involvement did not take place at South Carolina. Was he a bad apple at South Carolina? Nobody seems to think he was. They investigated his time at South Carolina, and they said that nothing that he is accused of doing occurred similarly at South Carolina. It happened while he was at Oklahoma State. So, I mean, you're trying to connect some dots there. I don't think they're all connecting. And listen, you're a South Carolina, you're wanting for talent in basketball, and you've got a top 25 recruits who might fall into your lap and might get cleared and might be able to play and might be able to help your program. And it's not going to in any way hurt your program in terms of penalties or anything like that. That was all looked at by USC compliance, and they couldn't be harmed by it. Why not take a chance and bring a guy in?
This is not what I don't want this to turn into. I don't want this to turn into Frank Martin getting lambasted for taking this guy. We knew it was going to be a flyer. We knew that it was going to be, I don't want to say a long shot for him to play, but they knew that there were some hurdles to get him eligible. The fact of the matter is, you still have now, with him leaving, you still got 3 spots remaining. It's not like he took away a spot from somebody who was going to get it. There's still 3 spots available, and they're currently, as you have reported, really only in on 3 other guys right now.
That's right, and they're very close, and we'll talk about A.J. Lawson, who visited over the weekend. I mean, they're in great shape to land him. He's a similar type player in terms of his size. Are his skill sets? Is his skill set the same as Brian Bowen? Probably not, But at least on paper and from what his coach has to say, he's got a lot of potential.
We'll get to Ken in Spartanburg and more of your phone calls, 800-956-7266 on Sports Talk.
More of your calls are coming up on Sports Talk. Hit us up at 800-956-7266.
The South Carolina soybean farmers are using your data to make more informed farm management decisions to improve your sustainable footprint. Show your commitment to sustainability with a free truck magnet available at unitedsoybean.org/sustainable. This message brought to you by your South Carolina soybean checkoff. 800-956-7266. Quickly, I do want to at least address what happened with Clemson, just because of the fact that we've been very Bowen heavy. But Marquise Reed, Sheldon Mitchell coming back. their 2 leading scorers returning. They will have 3 double-digit leading scorers from a year ago with the 2 of them, along with Elijah Thomas. 1 spot left on their roster, 3 spots left on the Gamecock roster for scholarships. Brad Brownell has got to be feeling pretty good today, Corn.
Now you look at their roster, 3 seniors in Reed, Mitchell, and Thomas to build around. I mean, I love that. I love it from the inside. And then you got your veteran guards, which we all know are huge in postseason play. You add the transfer, the grad transfer, and Javon White as a junior. He's got 2 years of eligibility, another
That's so
big.
smart.
And then you've got the young guys who we'll wait and see how they progress. But I think Amir Sims has got a chance, from what I saw, to be a really good player. A.J. Oliver came on last year late. Malik Williams got some playing time. Clyde Trapp was in and out of the lineup. And then your signees of Newman, Tyson, and Jamison, and they have the transfer Bear, who's got to sit out this year. But that's a good-looking team that Clemson can put on the floor next season, and they'll start out, I'm sure, ranked in the top 25. And that's how you build on a run in the NCAA tournament. You have that run that you surprise some people, but you have enough people coming back to where you can build on it, and they're going to be in that position.
This is the key fact that you like about seniors and a coach like Brad Brownell. They realize that next year they'll have to be better than last year, because mentally some teams Clemson sneaked up on. This time they're the hunted. You can recall during the end of last season, Clemson suddenly became the hunted and didn't handle it that well early till they woke up.
I think a lot of that had to do with their depth issues too.
Exactly.
And I think, you mentioned Clyde Trapp. That's somebody who has to take the biggest step forward amongst those who did not contribute last year, because you need to prove that you can spell Reed and or Mitchell, because they played very heavy minutes. I don't care what Brad Brownell says. He said it all the year about whether or not, they were getting tired or mentally tired over the course of the season. It showed in games late in the season. They need to be able to find a way to spell those 2 guys.
See, Trapp is in the weight room right now. That'll take care of that, because I think a lot of times he got pushed off his spot last year.
800-956-7266. More on the Bowen stuff. Let's go to Ken in Spartanburg. What's going on, Ken? How are you?
Hey, guys. Y'all do an excellent job. I want to let you know that you've broken this thing down about Bowen, as well as anybody could. And first of all, I think that the pro hit on 2 reasons that are, I think, key to the whole matter. One, that they did this to get it out of the way, I think. And I had a friend of mine text me that same message before I called. And the second part is that they had to set a precedent, and in respect to like the amount of time. But here's my question, and I've never had anybody be able to tell me exactly who these people are. What do they do all day? Are they like the guy that shows up at 11 and then has to take a break for lunch and comes back at 1:30 and takes the afternoon nap? And then what are they doing all day, and who are they? I've never known anybody with a name that says, I'm with the NCAA investigating committee or investigation group or whatnot. I've never heard a name. They exist in the dark. It's like that you can't, are they in the phone book?
Well, actually, they are people. They have an enforcement staff, an investigative staff.
The Committee on Infractions.
Well, we're not talking about them. They get the report. I'm talking about the people who do the legwork. They have their soldiers. I used to know one of them fairly well when he was living in the Columbia area. I used to play basketball with him. This is going back 20-some-odd years ago. In fact, he was the lead investigator on the Clemson NCAA issues back in the early 80s and became quite good friends with Danny Ford and the folks over there over time, because he was there for so much, because they had so much going on. But he also investigated. He was hired by USC as their compliance director when compliance directors were becoming vogue in college athletics. And I got to know him a little bit. But anyway, they're people just like everybody else, and they have a job to do. They have an overwhelming job to do. And yes, do we think they're biased and unfair in some of their rulings, not just in our area, but across the country? We see a lot of this stuff. We bark about it here when it happens. It happens at other places too, where some of their decisions made by the enforcement staff or by the enforcement committee when it comes to penalties for a school look a little bit out of bounds. And we wonder just what are they thinking when they do that, or why are they so harsh in this particular case but lenient in another case? And I think that's what really has college sports fans perplexed, like you are, and like really we all are, about the comings and goings of the enforcement staff, the committee on infractions, and all of that. Because to me, the baseline now is the North Carolina investigation, and how you can look into that.
To use air quotes on the investigation word.
Right. Well, no, I give them their full due that they investigated it. But how you can investigate that and walk away with no penalties on the university, and then turn around and penalize other schools for this, that, and the other, and that just doesn't seem right to me. That's why I think there should be an upheaval, and South Carolina should be at the forefront of that upheaval, because they have felt the sting of this, more often than not, from both the SEC and the NCAA.
Here's the big question now that needs to come about, that needs to be answered. I don't know if we'll get the answer, because the NCAA has taken such a basically position, drawing a line in the sand as firmly as they have. They now need to show their cards, or else they risk losing every last shred of their credibility if they haven't already. Because right now, you need to prove to the general public and really to USC that what they had on Bowen is inconsistent with what we've been hearing, in the fact that the FBI cleared him. This was all done via the father and not done via him, and the fact that all this, again, was done independent of the school's knowledge of this particular arrangement.
And here's the thing, too. Because they waited until the 11th hour, not only did they paint him into a corner, but they've painted USC into a corner, because there's no time to appeal. If South Carolina wanted to go back and appeal, if this is the final decision, or just the NCAA saying this is what's going to happen, we haven't finalized our case yet, but this is what's going to happen, there's wiggle room here now. He has to accept the NCAA's ruling, which now forces his hand to turn pro, even though maybe in his heart he wants to stay at South Carolina and play college basketball for at least a year and improve his stock status. Because does anybody think he's going to be drafted in the first two rounds?
You don't think?
I
No.
don't think so.
No. Is he going to have to go to the G League?
Probably.
Or go overseas?
More than likely.
So, I mean, now could he hire a lawyer? He's got a lawyer. Could he take that lawyer and file a lawsuit against an injunction against the NCAA, and maybe force their hand to maybe find a judge that will throw that out and open up an avenue for him to play at South Carolina? Could that happen?
That could have happened. See, if the NCAA would have made this decision 3 months ago. See, that's why I think they waited.
But see, that's just another form of punishment.
Exactly. Exactly.
And if that's true, and you make, if what you're saying is true, then that's another reason to secede from the NCAA.
And here's a guy who wanted to go to school. Yeah. If he didn't want to go to school, what would he have done? His dad took the money, hire a trainer, an agent, get yourself ready to go on all these junkets to meet teams and coaches, and use that year you were in class to get ready for the NBA draft.
We're not excusing the actions of the father, but in a way,
well, the ultimate shame is on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Now, how his son feels about all that, and that's where the ultimate shame is for us, for a parent to basically sell out their child to a shoe company.
It's very scummy.
Yeah, that's as low as it gets.
Oh yeah. Corn will give you more of an insight.
Are you speechless?
No, I'm not speechless. I'm frustrated for that whole
19,000 here, 30 pieces of silver here. Hey.
Corn will give you more on what this means for USC's roster and recruiting next.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
We will do a little bit more on the baseball in our second hour with help from Jonah Bride and Chris Williams, one from South Carolina, one from Clemson. We did get the information, the first of the three coaches to really make a declaration of a starter for this weekend's action in the NCAA baseball tournament. Adam Hill of South Carolina will start the opening game for the Gamecocks against Ohio State Friday. Ohio State basically declaring earlier this week that they're going to go with one of their southpaws in that contest, opening at Greenville about 2 o'clock is the scheduled start time for that, weather permitting, in the Lesser Carolina. That takes place again at Friday on the campus of ECU. Coastal Carolina playing on Friday night against LIU Brooklyn. Yet to name a starter for the Chanticleers. Might be Jason Billis, might be somebody else for the Chanticleers. Gary Gilmore declined to name that when he joined us last night. If you missed that, you can see it online at SportsTalkSC.com. We should find out tomorrow as well from Monty Lee, as they have press conferences up at Clemson, who they will start in their game at Doug Kingsmore on a Friday night against Morehead State. Time for recruiting and Corn with more on how South Carolina will replace the void left by Brian Bowen.
Yeah, absolutely. Over the weekend, 6'7", A.J. Lawson made an official visit to South Carolina. He's from Brompton, Ontario, Canada. He came in with his dad, his family. His father, Anthony Lawson, was born in Baltimore, but he lived in Somerton. He played football at Scotts Branch. While in the Air Force, he was stationed at Shaw, and he lived in Columbia. He's got a lot of family all around the state of South Carolina, has a brother in Rock Hill. So there are strong ties to the state of South Carolina. And talking to the dad, Anthony Lawson, he said they had a ball. They have set the table high. I really connected with the coaches, he said of himself. He said they have a really good plan for AJ, made us feel right at home. Trust factor in that the questions they've been asking for weeks and weeks, they got the same answers 2 or 3 times when they asked those questions. So they loved the consistency, sat down, met with the staff, felt good about them. And he said, I hate to let my boy go, but it's looking good for there, to be honest with you, there being USC. He says, I can't say yes, but I'm probably 90%. He said they expect to take a couple of more visits just to have something to compare. Creighton, SMU, and Oregon are possibilities. They'd like to make their decision by July. Now, A.J. Lawson originally was in the 2019 class. USC was following him while recruiting another player at his school, GTA Prep. He recently decided to move up to the 2018 class, and the Gamecocks offered and stepped up their interest. He averaged 21 points per game last season.
That's a teammate of Izagwu who ended up at Baylor, correct?
At UTEP.
Oh, UTEP. That's correct.
Yeah. Now to football. The battle between Clemson and NC State, to a lesser extent a few others, continues for defensive back Shaheem Battle. No pun intended there originally, but yes, it was intended. Of Rocky Mount, North Carolina. See, people usually say no pun intended, but I intended a pun there.
There you go.
The Tigers continue to hold the edge at this point as he begins a string of unofficials next month. He said still the same, both at the top. Right now, been talking more to Clemson than to NC State. A lot of conversation with Mike Reed. They've developed a great relationship, and Reed has outlined for him the depth chart at corner, what it would look like, and the chance for early playing time. They feel like he can come in and have an impact because of his good size. And he also likes the family feel around Reed and his relationship with the DBs. Tennessee and Virginia Tech currently 3-4 on the list behind Clemson, NC State. Plans to visit Clemson, North Carolina, Tennessee, Ohio State, Virginia Tech, and NC State unofficially this summer. He'll sign in December and will be an early graduate. USC is heavily involved, of course, with South Carolina native linebacker Derek Boykins of Concord, North Carolina. He makes this official to USC this weekend. Will Muschamp, here's another one where Will Muschamp has taken the lead in the recruiting efforts and is in touch with him practically every day. When not, he's talking to Coleman Hutzler, the linebackers coach, and USC is in the lead for Boykins going into the visit this weekend. Now, will he commit this weekend? He says it's hard to say. He said he does have an official plan for Kentucky June 8th, an unofficial with Clemson on June 13th. He also plans an unofficial to Tennessee the week after Clemson. He's making his decision before the 4th of July. Quote, whenever I feel it, I'm going to do it. It might be this weekend. It might be the week after that. Whenever I feel it, I'm going to do it. Right now, I don't think I'll commit this weekend, but we'll see. I really ain't got no number one. But he said that South Carolina most probably would be. Then he says, I really don't know. Yeah, talking about possibly committing.
Wavering.
Whenever I feel it, I'm going to do it. That's how he put it. He lived in Beaufort until the age of 6. And, of course, he said he had grown up as a Gamecock fan. And to recap the information from earlier, the state newspaper reporting that former Dutch Fork athlete Bryce Thompson, Shrine Bowler, who was spectacular in the Shrine Bowl, has enrolled at Tennessee or is in the process of enrolling at Tennessee and said that he will be eligible to play this semester. And Thompson said the Vols plan to use him as a receiver. All right, there you go with recruiting. Don't forget to check it out round the clock, 24/7, 365, 366 on leap years. Every 4 years, you get an extra day of recruiting. Just remember that. And you can find it on our website, sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter, use the hashtag #STRecruiting.
Stopping down on more of the Thompson stuff, I mean, this has to be something from the standpoint of they knew they had, I don't want to say a sure thing with Nick Harvey, but you had a player at a position of need that could have filled an immediate role. They could not leave him on the table with that last scholarship. They could not afford to wait any longer with Bryce Thompson. I know that this is going to make Gamecock fans frustrated because this is a kid. We've talked about him a lot. A kid right in your backyard with obvious talent, but with some sort of also just as obvious barrier that kept him from signing on time at South Carolina. Whether or not Tennessee had room, whether they put him on scholarship, that remains to be seen. We don't have that information right off the bat, but from at least what we understand, this was a move that South Carolina had to make, not only for the betterment of their football team this year, but just from the standpoint of missing out on this guy would have been detrimental.
Well, if he's going, to my understanding of the rules, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, if he's going to Tennessee today and enrolling in class to work out and practice with the team, he has to be on scholarship because walk-ons can't report until the student body reports in August. So it can't be a walk-on thing. So he must be going there on scholarship. You know, they had been on him the whole time, and they had told him they would hold room for him.
But they wouldn't necessarily make him sign a letter of intent. He'd sign grant and aid papers, right? Because I think it's after the point in time he can sign a letter of intent, I believe, right?
Well, I mean, you can sign a letter of intent anytime. It just is not binding after the deadline. Yeah.
So I'm saying they probably just give him financial aid papers.
Probably so. He probably did both. I guess he had a signing. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. The point is, you know, he's saying he's going to Tennessee and he's enrolling and he plans to be with the Vols and play offense for him. And I tell you what flashes in my mind when I think about a kid like that from South Carolina going to Tennessee pro, Stanley Morgan.
I would agree with you, but here's the key. I think South Carolina got some guys in that defensive backfield a little bit better.
I'm thinking offense. I'm thinking offense.
No, I know you're saying, but I'm saying they got guys who can stop him.
Didn't they recruit him as a corner?
Yes.
They did. But I think when you see this guy with the ball in his hands,
right?
I don't know how you put him in a position where he doesn't have the ball in his hands.
Well, I think a lot of that is Muschamp understanding the deficiencies at the corner. Not like South Carolina's not wanting for skill players. I don't think.
But they will be. I mean, you're losing Debo after this year. You might lose Brian Edwards after this year.
Right.
Those are two big guys that you're going to have to replace in all likelihood if Brian Edwards has a big year. So you can never have enough. In this day and age of throw and catch, you can never have enough electric offensive players.
Here's the deal about Muschamp and probably playing Thompson at corner. They always said, what corn? If you got a great receiver, hey, play him. If you got a guy that can run, he tracks the ball, but he can't catch worth a lick, put him at defensive back. Well, Muschamp likes turnovers, and he wants his corners to be able to catch the football.
Was one of the things they said that they weren't doing a lot was getting the ball out. That could have been something that they could have used in the spring. More on the Bowen. We'll get back to the baseball. We haven't talked barely any baseball during the opening hour. Of course, we've got 48 hours to go until the NCAA tournament begins. So more on that. And again, more on Brian Bowen leaving the Gamecocks to go to the NBA. Hour 2 of Sports Talk comes your way next.
You know, it's amazing.
2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Resetting our main story topics of the day here on Sports Talk, along with Phil Kornblut, Professor Tom Hayes, Will Pelagic here with you as we continue on Sports Talk, 800-956-7266. We know we had some more phone calls on the Brian Bowen situation, and we'll continue to elaborate on that as the show goes on. Brian Bowen leaving South Carolina upon knowledge from the NCAA that he would have to sit out at least one more season, full season, in fact, in order to fulfill the NCAA's eligibility requirements because of what happened with his father allegedly taking money from 2 Adidas employees and an agent, basically the sum of $19,500. That's a number that's according to the FBI and Department of Justice indictment. The original story on that was that the 3 men who were involved, which of course includes the man who was involved with Clemson Connections, Merle Code, they had conspired to pay him about $100,000. So that number has since then been disputed. It's maybe more about like $80,000. But the 19.5 was the number that appeared in the DOJ release to us, and apparently that money has been received. And again, part of the stuff coming from the NCAA is that in addition to having served that time or needing to serve that time, he would have had to repay some of that money as well.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, as you're going over that, some of the terrific basketball players over the years that South Carolina had a shot at having in their program, and for one reason or another did not. You know, we go back famously to Kevin Garnett and Jermaine O'Neal at the top of the list. And then you think about a guy like Mike Jones, who went to Syracuse, Buddy Harper, another great player who had some issues, didn't pan out for him to go to college. And even the big kid over at Lower Richland, who went to LSU. Stanley Roberts.
And stayed 1 year, I think.
Who could have been an absolute program changer if they had only given his coach a job on the staff. But there were some other mitigating circumstances from a family standpoint with him that LSU could better serve. But Dale Brown knew what he was doing in that situation and got that done. It's a long list of talented players that South Carolina could have had in this basketball program for one reason or another, and they did not end up showing up. And you can add this one to the list.
But Dale Brown on that team had Chris Jackson, who's one of the best shooters I've ever seen.
Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, later known as
Shaquille O'Neal, and Stanley Roberts. They couldn't get out of the first round of the NCAA tournament. Then he brings a ragtag bunch into the tournament, a 13 seed with a 6'7" center, and they go to the Final Four.
The thing, again, I want to make sure this does not happen. 800-956-7266. I don't want this to turn into something where people are criticizing Frank Martin for taking this kid. They had no way of knowing that the NCAA was going to drag its feet on this as much as they did. And I think the one thing that we all heard when they first announced this, remember this was back in January. They did this on the 10th of January. We got the chance to talk to Frank a couple days after that. And he basically said, look, you know, we're not going to rush this. We're not going to rush this process. The most important thing is that we want to make sure he's able to play at some point for South Carolina. I think we all kind of looked at that and snickered and been like, well, why are you waiting? Why are you making this happen? And apparently it's because they had knowledge that the NCAA was going to take a long, hard look at this and really use up all of their allotted time, according to sources that we had reporting on this story. It didn't come out until last night when a call was placed with the NCAA and the folks in the South Carolina Compliance Office. It basically said, hey, he's going to have to sit at least next year and maybe more. And number one, that's not fair. I know that fair is probably the wrong word, but it seems like a lot of unjustifiable and cruel and unusual punishment right now from the NCAA.
It stinks. It just stinks to high heaven from every angle. May I mention one other recruiting note?
Sure.
That I failed to mention. I just skipped right over this, but this is pretty significant. Warren McClendon, offensive lineman from Brunswick, Georgia, announced his top 5 today: USC, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee. So there's a bit of good news for South Carolina today from that standpoint.
It's a good pickup, but again, on the Bowen side, so much of this is making South Carolina almost kind of drag through the mud and almost like
who's dragging them? Who do you see? You see people out there? Are they getting hammered?
I mean,
on Twitter?
I think people are saying that that this is something that again they kind of get snake bit because so much of what they were banking any success going into this season on was Bowen. Now you really have, I mean, who on that roster strikes fear into your heart offensively? I think it's not necessarily making fun of them.
Here's a starting lineup for South Carolina next year. You're going to have Silva.
Yeah.
Okay, you'll build around him. I guess your point guard is going to be Trey Campbell. Your shooting guard is going to have to be, at least starting out, unless one of these freshmen emerges, Hassani Gravett. You'll have Kotsar playing the 5, and Minaya playing the 4. No. Minaya playing the 3, Silva playing the 4, and Kotsar playing the 5, but interchangeable.
Yeah. A stretch.
And then you have to hope that Kuznard, Moss, Frink, and if they add Lawson, can come along and contribute. One thing about it, if you're a newcomer to USC in this basketball season,
you're going to play.
If you can play, you're going to play.
Well, see, here's the other thing: is people I know at times South Carolina's team looks ugly.
It doesn't look very good.
Okay, but here's a team that beat Georgia.
Yeah,
shooting 29% from the field. Here's the key. As I said before, when they played teams like Oklahoma State or whatever, it wasn't that they didn't have the stud on offense. They didn't have the stud at the backcourt on defense. Because anytime Frank would look at Sindarius, I want him stopped, that person was stopped. They didn't have that person this year.
I just remember back where the offense looked last year, and a lot of times it was Frank Booker and Wesley Myers were basically the only people who had a pulse offensively when Chris Silva was not in foul trouble. I don't know if that offense and that cast of characters you named, I don't know if that group is any more effective sounding in my mind than the group that played here last year.
Well, as you look at this team, first of all,
you don't have as much dead weight like Kadeem Gay and Ibi Doumbia. Pardon me referring to them as that, but again, they just didn't contribute. I think they could be more contributors on this roster. I just don't know how they score more.
Well, I think Gravett will be a better player if he is relieved of his point guard duties. He seemed totally out of fit, and that was not a good fit for him. Campbell remains to be seen. He was a highly touted player coming out of high school. He goes to Georgetown. He's a backup, but he plays some. Then he gets hurt. Doesn't play at all last year. So here's a guy coming off a complete year free of basketball. He's got to pick it back up. You're putting a lot on him as your point guard. But then again, T.J. Moss can come in and play point guard, but he's a freshman. Then you've got Kuznard, who can be a scorer for you at the 2. Silva, we know what he can do. Silva is just a machine out there, and his motor runs hard all the time. If he stays out of foul trouble, if he's playing 30-plus minutes a game, then the Gamecocks have a chance to be in it. They have to have, Silva's going to give you his big year. Kotsar has got to bounce back and have
that's the key, a
big year. And Hasse's got to pick up. He's got to play like he did the first quarter of the season
to hit a wall,
and not like he did the last half of the season.
Minaya hit the same kind of wall.
Yeah, I think Minaya is going to be terrific in his second year after going through what he went through last season.
Well, I wonder this too from Silva's standpoint, and I'm sure this was talked about with him and the NBA scouts who he visited in with the stuff involving these workouts. I'm pretty sure that a lot of them talked to him about possibly trying to develop an outside shot. And by outside, I don't mean like from 20 feet. I think that a lot of people are trying to get him to become a three-point shooter, to add that to his toolbox. Whether he is called upon to do that at South Carolina, I don't know. But I think that's the missing piece for him as an NBA prospect. And if he can get that as part of his toolbox, that only helps the Gamecocks.
Yeah, and if he comes off the bench at the NBA and just be one of that defensive stopper, that'll work. I mean, Magic Johnson, and I hate to compare Magic Johnson with Silva. Magic Johnson came into the NBA, no jump shot, none. And still didn't have one. And when he retired, he had a set shot, didn't have a jump shot.
Brian, did you hear that? He used Magic Johnson and Chris Silva in the same sentence.
But listen, Did Magic have a jump shot when he retired?
They played basketball. I think that's the only thing you can say. It's the same thing.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Sports Talk brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Whether you need a quick getaway or a relaxing stay at a beach resort, a vacation loan from Founders can make it happen. Apply online at foundersfcu.com/vacation. Not a Founders member? Visit relaxjoinfounders.com to see if you qualify for membership. Not necessarily time for a vacation for us yet, as we have the NCAA baseball tournament beginning on Friday. Sports Talk will be live from both Greenville, North Carolina. That's where Corn will be.
Yeah, hey.
And I will be at the Doug Kingsmore Stadium side of Clemson's regional to open up play. Clemson plays Morehead State. South Carolina takes on Ohio State, and also Coastal Carolina will face LIU Brooklyn in Conway as well this weekend.
Can I mention, of course, with a little bit of a self-promotion here for Sports Talk, that we will be South Carolina's only sports talk show covering the Gamecocks and the Tigers in the regionals. And why is that?
Because we're the best.
Because we care.
Oh, is that it?
More than anybody else.
So is that what it is?
I think so.
Is that it?
I think so. Plus, we like getting out of town.
Hey, any time out of the office is fine by me.
Absolutely.
I get in less trouble that way. Some could say maybe the contrary is true. South Carolina, though, gets ready for Ohio.
Are you staying at the SO Club Hotel? Is that where you're staying up there?
I think that
they newly renovated SO Club Hotel.
They have a cot with my name on it in the corner. That
how many? What's your over under on number of hours you'll spend at the SO Club, especially if there's a rain delay?
Depends on how Clemson does this weekend.
Well, you got to figure they're gonna win.
If they beat Morehead State.
My dining suggestion for you in Clemson while you're up there,
yes,
of course, is the world's #1, and this is not a paid promotion. I'm not getting anything under the table. Western Sizzlin' on Tiger Boulevard.
What's that?
What's the Western Sizzlin'?
Yes, I've not heard of that.
Oh my God. Where are you from?
I'm not
Brooklyn, I forgot. Long Island. They don't have a Western Sizzlin' on Long Island?
They don't know. I've heard of the Sizzler.
No, this is Western Sizzlin'.
Gotcha.
On Highway 123, also known as Tiger Boulevard.
Uh-huh. So not the Smoking Pig, basically.
No. This is a steak place. This is one of those, cafeteria style steak places, but they have a great salad bar.
Okay.
But it's a staple of Clemson dining.
You are such a buffet guy, man. You are like the world's most do you go to the Brazilian steakhouse and feed up on the buffet like normal like people aren't supposed to do?
Well, it's a little pricey. This is not pricey like that.
No.
You can get a very nice steak and salad and soup and the whole deal, and a smile from the waitresses.
I've never been to a cafeteria style steak place.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That used to be a staple down here. Ryan's before they went out of business. Western Sizzlin'.
And that's what happened. Bonnie went out of business because they were where people just kept going.
So anyway, you should check it out. That's a great place. And further down the street, there is a Chinese buffet too.
Of course,
across the street further.
You would know about the Chinese buffet, but is it better than the place that you like to go in Simpsonville?
That's Epic Buffet.
Yeah.
See, we're giving out all these
secrets,
all these bonuses. No, Epic Buffet is hard to beat. The price is right, and the food's pretty good. If you're hungry, that's hard to beat. Right across from Hillcrest High School.
South Carolina and Ohio State in Greenville. When you go to Greenville, you have to stop by rehab, and I'm not talking about rehabilitation, the rehab lounge.
Yeah, the home of peg leg bait.
That's right.
You've been to that ballpark before, yes?
Which one?
In Greenville?
I've never been to Greenville, North Carolina.
That is a rowdy situation up there with the student section in there in left field. They wear jorts. They take their shirts off.
They wear what?
Jorts, like jean shorts.
Oh.
And they take their shirts off and go kind of crazy like hooligans.
I can remember listening to broadcasts of USC games when the Gamecocks went up there for regionals. And in fact, it was, it was a trip to East Carolina early one season. Remember that, Pro? And they got handled by East Carolina. And on the way back, I think Ray Tanner on the bus read his team the riot act. And if I remember correctly, and they took off because they played so poorly at East Carolina. East Carolina has always had a good baseball program.
Oh,
yeah. And this one appears to be very, very good this year. But I have not been there. South Carolina and East Carolina have had a history in all their sports, not so much in basketball, though Jeff Lebo, the former USC assistant, was head coach there. Now Joe Dooley, former USC assistant, is the head coach there. And Ken Potosnak, who was an assistant at USC, was an assistant at East Carolina. So they've had some connections, but they have played each other in football quite a bit over the years. And East Carolina you talk about the red-headed stepchild athletic program. I think East Carolina is that school. That's a pretty good sized school. They probably have 20-something thousand students, and nice football stadium, but they just have never gotten the respect. They've never gotten in in a big conference. They've always been in that outlier conference. And in the state of North Carolina, they are at best the fifth school in that state.
They are a purple-headed stepchild. Let's talk Gamecocks with Jonah Bride, the Gamecocks senior infielder, speaking yesterday about the Gamecocks' trip to Greenville to take on first Ohio State and then others.
It feels great to be back in the postseason. I mean, not making it last year was definitely really hurt us, and we got that in the back of our minds still. So yeah, I mean, you got postseason legends. I mean, obviously everyone on this team wants to join that group of players, and that's what we're going to hope to do.
Was there a sense of urgency from the senior class to do it though? Because some people think first year coach, the rebuild could be slower than other places. Here, that's not really. I don't think that would be accepted. So what was the sense of urgency with you guys to get it back here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was also big. The seniors, how many 5 or 6 of us, we've all been playing. I think that we've had a few of us have our best seasons yet. So that's definitely encouraging. That shows some sense of urgency. But I mean, with Coach, like I said, he didn't want to have any slow rebuild or anything. We want to be good from day one. So in his eyes, I remember he did say this, there's no such thing as a rebuild. We're just from day one, we're gonna try to win.
How's this set the foundation for the rest of his career here? Doing this year one. Not go with the rebuild thing like you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, it says a lot about him and his staff and how they're just going to, regardless of the situation, regardless of what's going on, what's happened in the past, it's all ahead of him. And I think that really helps, especially with the confidence that he has, and can continue to get good classes and have success and just build on it.
How do you think you guys have maintained such a good defensive presence in the infield, considering you've really been the only staple because there's been turnover at short, second, and first?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the guys that have been in the infield, they definitely have throughout. We've had our we've been good consistently in defensively, but LT's moved around for all the time he's been here. He's always been really good. Madison the same way, and then Matt and Rowe. They're both great defenders, and we take a lot of pride in the defense for sure. Practice, getting prepared, and it's been really good.
When you get to regional play, defense you think is more emphasized than any other time in the year because you're going to see good pitching at least early on, could be low-scoring games?
Yeah, definitely. Pitching and defense, I think in the postseason and the SEC play, I think it's really similar. I mean, you got to really pitch it and you got to really play good defense to really give you a chance to win. And I think that the way we've been playing defense and the way our pitchers have thrown this year definitely gives us a chance to win. And hopefully we can raise that to a whole new level starting now in the postseason.
After going 1-2 in Hoover, the confidence level is still pretty good for this team?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that anytime you hear about teams going to Hoover and not, it's tough for everyone. I mean, it's such a tough league, and it's at the end of the season, everyone's worn down. So, I mean, I really think that our confidence is definitely there. I mean, it got us some rest, being able to just get back and practice and do the things we want to do and prepare for a good regional this weekend.
Things that concern me, Corn, no Hopkins possibly in the starting lineup, and the left-handed pitcher for Ohio State.
Yeah, a guy that doesn't throw extremely hard. He's kind of crafty, one of those kind of guys. And the other thing, too, is now –
sounds like the guy that started Sunday for Mizzou against South Carolina.
Yeah, kept him off balance. And, of course, now that they are going to be sending Hill to the mound on Friday, they're sort of going back to the way that the rotation looks at the beginning of the year. We'll see if they go with Chapman second or Morris second. But Hill's got to throw strikes. Where his downfall comes is when he issues walks.
Yes.
And when they're not issuing walks and they're around the strike zone and making the other team put the ball in play or striking out, they're pretty good. But when he gets behind hitters and loses them to the walks, that's when he gets into trouble.
We'll get you at least a little bit on the Clemson side as well with their game against Morehead State. We'll hear from the National Player of the Week for collegiate baseball, Chris Williams, next. Someone from Tennessee has got too much time on their hands because they're calling back our tweet from March about Bryce Thompson, saying that nothing changed with his commitment and he's hoping to sign at USC by April.
Well, I think he was back then.
He was.
Yeah.
It says you quoted him directly.
Yeah,
what he
like
said.
he was. Hey, you know what? In Tennessee, you got more time than teeth. So I guess you got to be able to do something.
And they've been spending several years trying to find a coach.
They got two good.
I think they got one now.
They only have two.
They thought they had one each time.
They only have two things worth a damn in Tennessee: great whiskey and Calhoun's barbecue. Other than that, they're worthless.
Wow.
Yeah. Is that how you pretty much judge any locale, by the liquor and the food? So where do you rate? Where do you rate Columbia so far?
I mean the scenery helps.
Where do you rate Columbia so far? Then
I love
based
South
on your specs.
I love South Carolina.
Have you found a liquor here that you like?
Besides
an IPA,
I love the craft breweries here. The craft brewery scene here is very strong.
Yeah. How about the barbecue?
I love the barbecue. I actually I went to Little Pigs when I got back in town.
That's appropriate.
For the first time, and I was blown away. I was blown away by that stuff.
Yeah, Little Pigs is good.
It was fantastic.
There's a new place coming to 5 Points, you know.
It's
they're getting rid of the alcohol and they're bringing in the pork.
Yeah. See, I don't like that.
Get rid of the bars and bring the pigs.
800.
Get rid of pigs in one way and bring in another set of pigs.
They got a tech school over, I think, on the Grand Strand and near the Grand Strand. That you can major in
barbecue,
craft breweries.
Yeah, they had a similar major at Mizzou where they did wine. You could do the same kind of thing.
And you didn't take a course.
Is that what the governor was majoring in? Was at Missouri?
No, he was majoring in
philandering.
He was trying to be the real life Christian Grey. If you know anything about that book series, 800-956.
Actually, I don't.
800. Your wife might. 800.
No comment.
956-7266. Mark is.
So she did visit a leather shop not too long ago. I don't know what that meant.
Stop it. Mark is calling from Aiken. Hello, Mark.
Hey guys, how you doing? Pro, we got a NBA Finals question for you, and I apologize if I've talked about this already, but regarding the finals, if the Cavs make it a series and they pull a shocker, one report has LeBron staying. Now, does he, and do they will and deal to get him some help? And the last question is regarding the Iguodala injury. Do you think they go ahead and give him the green light in Game 1 to play because of the way that he guards LeBron? And I'll let you guys have it. Thanks for taking my call. Thanks.
Our NBA expert, Professor Tom Hayes. It's apparently Corn and I know nothing about the NBA.
Well, I did see where they announced that Iggy is out for Game 1. So
Yeah,
I'll answer that for you.
And he's the one that really just harasses LeBron and tries to. LeBron doesn't need a green light. There's no gas, no brakes with him in
gas,
Cleveland.
No
the two teams you hear a lot with LeBron is Philly and quietly Houston.
He didn't want to play in the West, though.
So the thing is,
and I don't know if you want to play in Philly after what happened with that GM over the last couple of days. You seen that?
Yeah. If you're LeBron, first of all, you're right. Nobody goes to the West. You go to the easier path through the East.
Mm-hmm.
But let's face it, Philly gets a little bit older. Boston gets healthier. The East is not going to be that easy.
You know what I read on the Celtics today, what they're looking to do? They are looking to, of course, move up in the draft inside the top 5. What's wrong?
Sorry. I just saw a headline that made me laugh.
Well, hold off while I'm telling my story.
Go ahead.
And the word is that Danny Ainge is angling to get the big guy from Texas, Mo Bamba.
Mo Bamba.
Mo Bamba.
Mo money, Mo Bamba.
Yeah,
from
so
Texas.
He's angling to get him. It might cost him. The writer did not think he'd give up Jaylen Brown, but they think he would give up the draft pick. The Celtics had the 27th pick in the draft, so they give that up along with
they're not getting Bamba down at 27. I don't think.
No. He'd have to get into the top 6 or top 5.
Yeah.
But give up
Brown.
No. Not they're going to keep Brown. He's his upside's too great. What's his name? The shooting guard.
Tatum?
No. The guy that replaced Irving from Louisville. Who took all the bad shots in Game 7, clunked everything. Come on, people, think. He was so good, and then he was so bad.
That's why I forgot about him, because he disappeared.
What's his name?
Terry Rozier.
Terry Rozier. Yeah, Terry Rozier. The Celtics #1 this year, which would be 27th, and maybe they've got Sacramento's #1, which is protected. If it's #1 pick in 2019, it's protected. But they have Sacramento's pick in 2019.
I heard this
package that all together to move up to like number 5 or 6 and get Bamba.
I heard this scenario worked out. Philly fires Brian Colangelo for using burner Twitter accounts. They hired David Griffin to entice LeBron at the end of the year. Because Griffin obviously had such a relationship with LeBron, and Dan Gilbert let him go because Dan has an axe to grind with LeBron.
Here's the thing about LeBron, and everybody talks
more NBA talk on Sports Talk.
Yeah, talks about it.
Why not? It's June. Almost.
I think I read in a business journal or whatever, LeBron yearly spends between $1.5 million and $2 million on his body. He has a staff, including 2 chefs and a former Navy SEAL in the offseason to keep him in shape. It is ridiculous how much he invests.
Well, do you know how hard it is to play a basketball game carrying 4 other bodies on your back?
Well, that's true too.
That'll wear down anybody.
Sounds similar to what Tom Brady does. I mean, Tom Brady's got a fully paid nutritionist on staff. He eats that avocado ice cream. He's got a book. He's got his own little trainer who got in trouble with the Patriots. I mean, he's got investments, if you know what I mean. Clemson getting ready to take on Morehead State. Let's hear from Chris Williams, the National Player of the Week. 7 hits last week in the ACC tournament, and also 3 home runs.
Like, it's really cool to be National Player of the Week, but that's in the past now. We got to focus on the present and what's going on this weekend.
How motivated is this group right now?
This is the most motivated group I think we've had in the past 2 years. The past 2 years, like I said earlier, we're just kind of happy to host a regional, but now it's our 3rd time around. It's business, and we're here to win.
I know you talked about Vanderbilt and St. John's, but just what does that mean having them back here?
Like I said earlier, we kind of wish we'd have someone new, but it's kind of like unfinished business to have them come back and be at our place again, and it's definitely going to be different this year, that's for sure.
when you are in the and Davidson are probably the two hottest people on the planet. You know that zone. I mean, you want to maintain it. Are you a superstitious guy? Do you have a ritual thing? But
I mean, I guess this past ACC is like I wore the same socks every day, but like that's kind of like basic and stuff like that. But like honestly, like my ritual right now, like my kind of like my how do I call this? My approach to the play right now is just slowing everything down, and that's really helped me a lot the past month or so. It's just kind of slowing the game down, taking it game by game, and having like a game plan at the play every time I go up there, and not trying to throw away any at bats.
Yeah, but you've had a pretty consistent year. I don't really remember any significant slumps. I mean, does it kind of feel like it's been about as steady or above average for you as it has in your time here?
Like there's been times this year where I wish I could have done a little bit better, but it's baseball, and the good thing was about like a month ago I just kind of let everything go, and like I just got to move forward, and that's when I kind of like realized like like I actually am having a really great season with all my best friends, and just trying to enjoy it because it's my last year.
When you look at that decision to come back, what comes to mind when you reflect on that whole process?
Definitely, there's no regrets. Like I look back and I'm happy with my decision. Like to be able to play at Clemson one more year, like it's been incredible. And this year's been absolutely amazing, and it's been a great ride. And I know we're not done yet, but like looking back, like there's nothing I regret. It's been amazing.
Is it hard at all to manage distractions when you know that the draft's next month?
I actually thought about this during practice today, and I think we've all done a great job of like looking at what's important right now, and what's important is this weekend. And if we take care of what we do this weekend, focus on this weekend, and get prepared, all that will kind of play itself out. And and that's what Coach Lee always tells us: like focus on what's important, and everything else will play out.
I know you've done it before, but how weird is it to practice, inside with football hash marks?
So if you asked me this question in January, it'd been weird, but we've done it quite a bit this year. When we went to Notre Dame, we practiced there indoor, and we've practiced this indoor countless times now. And, it's kind of like a thing now. It's like, yeah, we're indoors, but we're still trying to get our work done to get ready for this weekend.
I'm not sure if they got some time outside today. Basically, the way things have been weather-wise have been kind of inconsistent over the course of this week, but we'll see if they do so over the course of tomorrow. We'll be able to see practice tomorrow from both Greenville and Clemson. We'll detail more of that and also give you our poll question for the week when we come back and close up shop on Sports Talk.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
I did want to get some of these comments in from our Brian Bowen commenters on the web and also on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Gary says Bowen should sue the NCAA. I hope he does. He's being penalized for what someone else did. That's not fair. Don said even if it was his father should be punished. Brian already has an attorney. Why not sue the NCAA? Calvin says the NCAA is a joke. North Carolina cheated and didn't even get a slap on the wrist. This young man did nothing wrong. The member schools of the NCAA should pull out and form their own governing body, much to what you were talking about. We have a new poll question for the week, Corn.
Yeah, our new poll question. Of course, last week it was how will Clemson do in the NCAA tournament. This one is how will USC do in the NCAA tournament. So far, respondents feel, most of them by a slight majority, think the Gamecocks will get to a super regional. 41%, 39% say comes to an end in Greenville, North Carolina, and a brave 19% so far say it's Omaha for this USC baseball team.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Something we brought up earlier in the show ever so briefly, but wanted to touch on in a little bit more broadness is the Carolina opener, or SEC opener, if you will, against Georgia. Will be a 3:30 contest on CBS. Some people were remarking that takes away from some of the heat that a 12 o'clock contest would have had.
Nope.
Of course,
I think it's plenty hot.
I think it'd be plenty hot as well. Some think that they'll be too inebriated by the time they start. But they're drinking at the Cockabooses or anywhere else and the like. Could be something for that.
Maybe inside the stadium.
You know, it's funny. I wanted to touch on this too because somebody wrote a story from Knoxville. This is what Ray said to us yesterday about the SEC talking about alcohol sales with regards to legislation inside the SEC. Currently, the SEC does not allow any alcohol sales inside the general admission parts of the stadium. If you have basically a situation with the premium seating where you had existing situations where you sold alcohol in that regard, they still allow you to do that if your grandfather in, like if you're in the Gamecock Club or something like that, you can still sell it, but it can't be in the general public with public seating. Ray Tanner said yesterday on our show that he hasn't seen enough data to suggest that the profit would be enough. Now, I know some of these places who have sold alcohol. I think West Virginia's one, Ohio State is another. They reported somewhere in the figure of about $4 or $5 million of gross sales. I don't know if that's profit, because when you think about what you're selling, you have to think about security and extra officers and maybe some insurance stuff as well. But in my mind, they should be able to come up with some data to say that this is actually something they can have and make work.
Well, I mean, just from the eye test, let's use the eye test, for instance. I see so many people bringing it in internally and not the other little flask and other things you hold on your shoulder and stuff, and it's in. I don't see how selling it, especially it's going to be pricey, that people would buy alcohol inside the stadium.
I think this is just another step where college athletics doesn't need to be. Just another step down that road away from what college athletics was supposed to all be about way back when. And yeah, I know times are changing and all this, but if you're doing this because you think it is going to help your bottom line financially, then that's a wrong reason to be doing it. Just like any decision that you make, like related to television. I mean, I know that's a bottom line financial thing, but almost every decision you make related to television inconveniences your paying customer in some form or fashion. I think that, you know, I haven't been in a lot of pro arenas over the years. You've probably been in a lot more than I have.
Yeah.
But I know I've gone to pro arenas where they sell beer, and especially when they have a pro basketball team and a hockey team. Like I go to Madison Square Garden, and you walk in the place, and it just reeks because you've had a hockey game the night before. The steps are still sticky from the beer that was spilled over, or if they had a Knicks game, whatever the case may be. It just reeks. Now, if you want that, maybe not so much for your outdoor facility. Maybe it won't be so bad at your football stadium, but if you have that inside your at, let's say, Colonial Life Arena or Little John Coliseum, and you have a crowd in there of 10, 15,000, and half of them are drinking beer and spilling it, 3 days later you come back for another game, it's going to reek like 3-day-old beer. And get ready for it if you do that.
I will say this, just as a devil's advocate, this is almost kind of like the gambling situation.
Don't spill your beer?
Well, no, not that one. That's a party foul. But think about it like we talk about the gambling perspective. It's already happening. They're already drinking anyway, whether it's outside or whether it's that.
But that reduces the volume. I mean, if you open it up for sales inside the arena, you're going to double or triple the number of people drinking compared to who's outside. Or if they're drinking outside, most of them are leaving it outside. Now, some are going to sneak it in. Most are leaving it outside. If you open it up for sales inside the arena, then you're talking about a huge growth in the number of people who are buying the beer and drinking it or whatever they're selling.
Now, I've seen elaborate tailgates, and some I've seen, they may have more whiskey on the outside than the person who's supposed to be selling it on the inside. I just think it's much ado about nothing. I don't think the sales will, in my opinion, wouldn't be, unless they're going to try to police how much people alcohol, and that's not going to happen on the outside. So I don't see, especially in Columbia and Clemson, where that's going to.
Well, I think about even like people who have seats in the zone, like at Carolina, and I think this is the case as well at Clemson. You know, they have lockers with those where you keep your alcohol in that locker, and they have like mixers in the back or whatever to be able to mix your alcohol with. Again, but this is my opinion. Why is it okay for those people to have alcohol and not the general public? That's again
because they pay a special price to have that right. Why do they get to sit at the 50-yard line in the shade? Because they pay a price, a premium. They pay the seat license to have those seats, and they pay the extra price to be able to go in the West Zone or to the zone, and they get those privileges.
Now,
privileges come with dollars.
I used to play this game, especially when I went to a South Carolina game and may have been sitting in the stands. Is one of us would sit there and count how many times they call for the magistrate, and you could tell,
or the doctor.
Yeah, on a night that was hot, you know, it's still dark, but it's hot. You may count 15, 20, 25 times either Dr. So-and-so or the magistrate.
You know, there is a jail underneath Williams-Brice.
Yes,
I don't know if they have a jail. Do they have a holding cage at Clemson?
I'm not sure.
But downstairs, did you know that?
Is it next to the Paul? Sorry.
Too soon?
Sorry.
Who said that?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I don't know if they have one at Clemson. But no, wait, what am I saying? The police department's attached to the damn stadium. I forgot.
Yeah.
For at least for now, I think they're moving. But yeah, at Death Valley, the police department is attached to Memorial Stadium.
That's convenient.
Yeah, very. But at USC, there is a jail and a magistrate on duty downstairs.
They used to have one in the old vet, the old Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. I don't know if they have it in the new stadium, but again, it's very common from the older facilities.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying that I'm in favor of the SEC putting this about, but other places are figuring out how to do this, and the fact is, there should be a way to increase revenue. Not that they need more money, but at the same time, this could also help the particular issues involving attendance, which once again was down another year all across college football.
Maybe
not just
people
here.
should start going to games because they like sports.
Well,
and like their teams and like
that's
their
a
games.
very utopian act.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, that's sort of the thought there.
Well,
hey, did you know that just to change subject? Did you know the head coach at Morehead State has a bachelor's degree in sports administration?
I did not know that.
From South Carolina.
Oh,
he's a USC grad. Oh, he was head coach at Lander from 2003 through 2005.
So he'll be doubly motivated.
Oh, he was at Winthrop too as associate head coach and recruiting.
He'll be triply motivated to beat Clemson.
Yeah, so he's got some familiarity.
Safe travel to north of the border.
Yeah, I was looking up directions.
Say hi to Pedro for me on the way up.
I was looking at directions. It said go to the end of the world and turn right, and you'll be in Greenville, North Carolina. So, looking forward to that trip.
I'll be in the upstate.
Well, you know how to get there.
I do. I can do that driving in my sleep. Sometimes I have.
Turn left at the SO Club.
No, you go to Clinton and take a left, and you go to Greenville and take another left. It's basically how it is.
Well, you don't have to go to Greenville now.
That's true.
You know,
if you go to
you can go 418 and go through Pelzer and all that fine.
I don't know if I want to do that.
You don't take the toll road?
I do not take the toll road. The toll road is a ripoff.
It is a ripoff. Worst toll road in America.
We'll talk to you tomorrow from 3 different places on Sports Talk.